Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be looking at something called as Rhino MCP, which I've been testing out for a couple of weeks, right? The contents of this particular video is simple. I will first show you a few of my tests that I have done with Rhino MCP. We'll look at what exactly MCP is and specifically what Rhino MCP is. We'll look at how it works and why is it useful. Then we'll see the installation process on our computers. Then I'll tell you how to work with it. And then we'll look at safety concerns, right? One thing that is really important, especially to me, is with any AI tool that I install on my computer, is to realize or understand how safe this is, right? Then we'll look at a quick start checklist. Like for example, every time you have to run Rhino MCP, there are certain things that we got to do, or in this case, let's say protocol, you got to take care of to be able to run it, right? So let's see what I have made with this, right? So in this first video, I asked it to make 20 plots, 10 plots on the either side of the road of 60 by 40 feet size, and the road is going to be 18 feet, right? And I was completely blown away because how precise is this, right? One of the drawbacks with generative AI is the precision, right? And this clearly takes care of it. When you are doing something like this, it was really mind blowing to me. Then I asked it to make some simple blocks stacked on top of each other. I gave it a limit of 30 feet and it did it, right? So you can see how precise this is, right? In the second video, I then asked it to make houses based on the principle of modular aggregation, right? While you will see that these houses are floating, right? They are not connected. And that's something that I have noticed with MCP, that sometimes it doesn't really stick geometries to each other, which I think is fine, right? Then I asked it to make a family of it. So I think it was around 9 or 10. What was useful for me is that once I made this, I took a screenshot of this and used it in a AI engine. In this case, I used Comfy UI, which I have installed locally on my computer. If you want to know how to work with Comfy UI, let me know and I can make a video on that as well. And then I could see what kind of spaces are being generated, right? And this took hardly 30 minutes. I want you to understand how crazy this is, that what you are able to do right now, right? I don't know, maybe it's just me who gets super excited about these things that happening in today's time and age. Then I asked it to make a parametric kind of just a city with cubes, which are, let's say, rotated and twisted and turned. Then I asked it to put all of them in a site. I told it to add some trees and roads. What was crazy to me in this example was how each of these geometries, it correctly put in layer. So right, you see in this case, it was easily able to put in those layers. It was super crazy to me, right? I don't know what else word to use it. And then I put it back into Comfy UI, rendered those again, and then upscaled it, right? So just by getting those simple blocks, I was able to convert this into an architectural visualization, right? And I don't know if it can be used for different things, but right now I'm going to stick to the realm of architecture and design, let's say. So basically, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, right? And this was introduced in November 2024 by Anthropic. Okay, for people who don't know what Anthropic is, it is a AI research organization. It is kind of similar to OpenAI, right? I mean, it has to be similar because Anthropic was started by 7 former employees of OpenAI. OpenAI, which started I think in 2015, Anthropic was started in 2021. ChatGPT, right? So OpenAI has ChatGPT, and Anthropic has something called as Claude, right? And according to Anthropic, they say that Claude is safe, accurate, and secure to help you do your best work, right? I don't know how true this is, but let's take their word for it, right? And we will be using Claude to connect or talk to Rhino and get back and forth feedback, okay? So now let's see exactly what MCP is, right? So like I said, MCP is Model Context Protocol. And you can get more details on this resource, which is http://modelcontextprotocol.io/introduction. And MCP basically is an open protocol that standardizes how applications provide context to LLMs. Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a second because I don't know what is LLMs, right? I mean, in the video I will cover it, but right now let's say I don't know what LLMs is, right? So I'll give you a brief run through of what LLM is, right? So LLMs basically stand for large language model. And I mean, I can just run through MCP definition, but I think it's important to know all these things to understand what's exactly happening in the back end. Okay. So large language models, or basically LLMs, they have been trained on general purpose tasks, right? So you have these reasoning engines, like, let's call them right now reasoning engines, like Claude, DeepSeek, Gemini, ChatGPT, which have been trained on a huge data set. It could include any conversations on internet, textbooks, and that's why they're able to answer to you quickly when you ask it a question, right? For example, GPT-4 was trained on 1.76 trillion parameters, right? And we're talking about heavy computing right now. So most of these tools have been trained on cloud interface, right? So that's briefly what LLM is. These are models trained on huge data sets, not specific data sets, but huge data sets, which allow you to use them, right? And that's what basically LLM is. Let's keep it simple till now. But you might be wondering, if there are LLMs, do we have SLMs, which is small language model? Yes, we do. Okay, I'm going to move out of the screen for a while. And basically, similar to LLM, SLM stand for small language models. And while large language models are trained on, let's say, more broad training, SLMs have been trained for a specific tasks. Let's say it could be healthcare, education, or customer service for your own companies. Then you use SLMs, right? Because the parameters here are quite small. They are, let's say, in this case, Llama has 8 billion parameters. Now, because these are small parameters, you don't need to use heavy computing. You can do it on your machine as well, right? So you can run this locally. What that means that, like, for example, anytime I need to go to open ChatGPT, I got to go to Internet Explorer, right? But these I can download on my computer and I can have access to them. They're not going to be as precise as LLMs because they have been trained on a smaller data set, right? And these are some of the examples of SLMs, okay? One interesting terminology that I came across when reading or going through both of these was something called as parameters. And not because I like parametric design, but it was interesting for me to know what exactly this is, right? So basically, parameters are like numbers inside a large language model that keep on tweaking during the training process to improve its answers and reduce mistakes, right? So let's say, for example, you want to create a data set of world's best ice creams, right? You know what the ingredients are, right? It could be milk, sugar, and let's say flavor number 1. Now you keep on changing these parameters, let's say ingredients or parameters we call it, until you get the best ice cream number 1, right? You will change it based on consistency of the ice cream, based on, how much sweetness it has to be there, and all other things, right? And you get this. Then you keep on tweaking it to get, let's say, best flavor number 2, because you want to make a catalog or book of this amazing ice cream flavors. So next time you type, give me a best mango ice cream recipe, it will break down and give it to you, right? So whatever you tweak in between, or whatever you keep on constantly changing to get the best outcome, that is what parameters are, right? Now, this is according to you, right? Because that's where mistakes also happen with generative AI. The ice cream that you like is not necessarily the taste of ice cream that I like, but I can learn something from it. So that's also another reason why you need to use generative AI, even though they make mistakes, right? Because they have been trained by a company or by AI researcher and AI scientist. So there is going to be some kind of bias, right? I don't want to use a lot of words right now, but accordingly, because it's your taste of ice cream, there's a little bit of bias about what you like, right? Versus what I like. And that's how this all interfaces. What's interesting to understand is that these parameters gets frozen. Interesting, right? You're talking about ice cream. Gets frozen in the training set, right? Once the training is done, you cannot change it. Like, for example, I can't say that in this book of ice cream, can you make changes in sugar? No, because the training is frozen. And who decides it? Again, like I said, AI researcher or AI companies, they get to decide it, right? Interesting thing I read, I don't know how genuine this is, but when I told you that ChatGPT works with 1 point, or GPT-4 basically works with 1.76 trillion parameters, humans on the other hand, or human brain on the other hand, works with around 700 trillion parameters, right? So that's why we are able to think more better cognitively than an AI tool, right? Okay, that was a little bit of a detour, but I think it's important to understand these terminologies. Otherwise, it becomes difficult what exactly is happening, right? I'm going to go back to MCP, and I'm also going to come in the screen again. So coming back to MCP. So like I said, MCP is an open protocol that standardizes how applications provide context to LLMs. Okay, so now it's easy to understand because we know LLMs have been trained on a larger picture. They don't know how Rhino works or how Blender works, right? But this MCP will help them know, right? So see the next line. It says, think of MCP like a USB-C port for AI applications, right? Just as USB-C provides a standardized way to connect your devices to various peripherals and accessories, MCP provides a standardized way to connect AI models to different data sources and tools. Exactly what I was saying, because LLMs have not been trained on a specific tool, like let's say they're not trained on Blender, Photoshop, Premiere, you can create this plugin so that now LLMs know better how to talk to or how to communicate with Rhino or any other tool. Just to see this little bit visually, so I cannot directly connect my computer to external keyboard and mouse, right? So I have USB-C or Bluetooth, right? Similarly, in this case, Claude can't directly access Rhino or Blender because it's not trained with it. So then MCP comes in between and helps both of us, which is Claude and Rhino, okay? To see this more visually further, so this is what is happening in the backend in the simplest way, right? So Claude talks to MCP plugin, which is Model Context Protocol. That talks to Rhino API, and visually we see in Rhino, right? Now there is new term API. Let's see what it is. Right now, let's ignore it, right? To think of it in a more human body way, for example, let's say Claude is the brain, right? And my brain asks me to lift a 5 kg box, right? So my nervous system tells my muscles that, okay, you got to lift this, right? And then I lift, and the nervous system tells my brain, job well done. Then what if my brain says that, okay, now you got to lift 25 kgs box, right? My nervous system tells my muscles again, and this time I can't lift it. Okay, like my brain is like, damn it. But anyway, so the nervous system tells back my brain that he can't do it. Okay, then my brain says you can use 2 hands. So my nervous system tells my both the hands now, and I am able to lift it. So this back and forth, what is happening with the brain and the nervous system, is what happens with Claude and MCP plugin. They constantly have this back and forth because MCP sees whether Rhino is able to do it or not do it, and then it takes the next step, right? So that's what basically is happening. Okay, now API. Okay, one last terminology. So API basically stands for Application Programming Interface, right? Now this is helpful for any app to communicate to other app, right? For example, if I want to talk to Rhino, of course I can directly type, but Claude can't directly do it, right? Or MCP plugin can't directly do it. And that's where API comes in, right? API is not the coding language, which is a thing that I was confused for a long time. For example, if you go to Rhino developer, you will see all the API references that they have for Rhino and Grasshopper. And API kind of looks something like this add rectangle. While this entire language of rs.add rectangle plain, whatever the size of the rectangle is Python, this add rectangle is what an API is, right? So the language is any, like tools could be generated with any language, right? Could be Python, C#, C++, whatever, JavaScript. But the language for each of these tools is different, right? What's a good analogy of it? Okay, let's say you want to know what is the maximum limit of height of a building you can build in your neighborhood, right? You go to the city corporation, you talk to them in English, right? That's the language that you're using. It could be any local language as well. That's a language of communication. but the city corporation gives you bylaws. That becomes the API, right? And this API or bylaws change with different architectural typologies. Tomorrow you might say, I want to build a museum, I want to build a hospital, right? This bylaws keep on changing, and that's how API is, right? This is the most simplest way I understood what API is, and that's what it is. It is the way of communicating to that particular tool, right? That's what it is. Okay. Now, why is this model context protocol useful, right? What are its uses? Number one, like I said, you don't need to now train any AI models for specific apps. For example, you don't need to train large language model on Rhino, on Blender, or any other tools, right? So that is really helpful, right? Now imagine that the variation or the different versions of Rhino come up. I saw recently Rhino 9 work in progress is happening, right? Now Rhino 9 will come, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. Somebody would have to feed whatever new has come up in that model, right? Large language model, which would take so much time and energy, right? But this, because it's an API or it's a plugin, there are easy upgrades. So upgrades can be done very easily, right? Then you can connect to any AI tool. You don't need to specifically be restricted to Claude. Right? You can use it to GPT. For example, your USB drive can connect to any keyboard or mouse, and that's similarly the case, right? Then because you're seeing this live, right, things are happening real time, you can take better decisions of what you want to do rather than, taking a code, implementing it, seeing it. No, now that the interface is quite clear, right? Where I type, MCP talks to API, and this is happening real time. Versus I type in, let's say ChatGPT, it gives me a code, I put it, I get error, I go back, I do this. This feedback loop has been reduced to one single interface, right? This allows for faster iteration process for designers, right? So that's more or less what MCP is, right? It's a plugin, okay? That's it. It's the way of communicating with any app, and because LLMs have not been trained for that particular app, you get to use it. Okay, that's it. Now, the fun part. Let's get to the installation guide, right? And see how this exactly works. We got to install two things. One will be Rhino, the latest version. Then we got to install Claude desktop version, and then we got to connect this using PowerShell, which already will be there in Windows, right? Okay, now that we saw what exactly MCP means, let's begin with the installation process. The first step you got to do is we got to install Rhino. So you can go to your browsers, you can type rhino3d.com. You will enter this page, then say download, right? Then you got to click on 90-day evaluation version, stick to Rhino 8. Right, then it will come up with a survey. I think you can do the survey part of it. Okay, so once you finish this, right, it will ask you to log in, right? For example, right now, let me sign out of my profile. Okay, and yes, so this is what it will look like. It says download Rhino 8 for Windows evaluation, right? It will ask you log in or create a Rhino account. So click on this. Okay, if you already have an account, it will directly start fetching my data now, right? Because I already have an account. But if you don't have an account, then you got to do the login process. I think there are two steps. One is you can add your email ID and directly go, or it says create a new account. Click on it. You can connect to a Gmail as well. Okay, so that's the two steps. Once you do that, you will see this step which says download Rhino 8. Say I agree to McNeil's privacy policy, and then download for whichever version you want to use it for, right? And then you will get a license key here, right? I'm just going to blur this license key, but you will get it, and you get it for 3 months, right? So that's why it's saying expires on 16th of July, July, correct, right? Download this, install Rhino. The installation process is quite simple, very simple, nothing too complicated. And I guess you have to restart your computers. That's it, right? Then open Rhino. This is what Rhino interface kind of looks like. You can zoom in, zoom out with your mouse wheel, and you can use your right mouse click to orbit, right? Little bit, that's all how Rhino works. For now, I think that's enough. Now what we got to do, in Rhino, we got to install MCP, right? So Of course, I didn't code it, or somebody had made it for us to be able to use it. And this is how the page looks like. So if you go to, if I go back, so if you type Rhino MCP in Google, the first link which says Rhino Model Context Protocol Integration, you will see the steps, and these are the exact steps we will follow, right? It's quite simple what we will be doing. We need to install a couple of things, right? I think there is a part here for Mac as well. Yeah, there should be, yeah, it says if you're on Mac, please install UV as brew install UV. I don't know what this is, but if you're Mac users, you will know this part, right? And because somebody has made this MCP server, we can now easily establish this link, right? So like you say here, we got to see this icon, and then that means that the MCP connection has been started, right? Let's go simple step by step, right? If you want, you can go through this entire document and see what exactly it is, right? So this is made by Jing Chen Chen. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but I think it's important to know who makes this because it's available for everybody to use, right? So this is what we got to install. So open Rhino. In Rhino, in the command line, type package manager, package, PACKGMANAGR, package manager, enter. Now this is generally the way how you install different plugins in Rhino, right? And here now you can type Rhino MCP, and you should see this, right? Right. So you see something called Rhino MCP, and you will see the author's name, and this was released 10th April, right? Okay, so it's like very, very new. So just click on it and say install, right? If you don't see this, if you don't, for some reason, don't see Rhino MCP, what you got to do is you go to you go to help, you go to check for updates in Rhino, right? And then, yeah, see a new version for is ready to install, but still I updated previously and I'm able to use it. But if you can't see this, you need to just update your Rhino, and then you should see that MCP plugin in the package manager. Okay, so going back, let's type package manager. Let's type here Rhino MCP, enter. Sorry, not CMP, MCP, right? Yeah, and then just install it. Once you install it, Rhino will tell you to close the app and open it. Perfect. Just do that, nothing else. So step 1 is done. Amazing, right? Step 2 is simply to install Claude. So go again to your Internet Explorers, and you got to go to Claude AI.download, or you can just say Claude user Claude desktop app, and then it will take you to Claude desktop. Click on it, and then you can install for a specific version or OS that you're looking for, right? In this case, it's Windows. If you just click on it, it will start downloading the app wherever you want. It's simple, nothing too complicated, right? Then you can save it. Okay, once you save it, all you got to do is you just got to double click on it. So this is the setup file, double click on it. I already have it installed, so I'm not sure if it's going to ask me to reinstall it, but let's see what happens. So simply double click on it and it just starts installing, right? Yeah. And then if you already have an account, it's just directly going to connect to your account, and now it says, hi Kedar, how are you? Amazing, right? Step 2 done. Beautiful. Now, the link has not been established, right, between Claude and Rhino MCP. Now we got to establish that, because let's say I ask Claude now, connect to Rhino MCP server. See, it says I don't have the ability to connect to a server called Rhino MCP or any external servers. I'm Claude, an AI assistant created by Anthropic, and I operate within this conversation interface only, right? Because now we have not given it access to connect to anything, right? Right now there is Claude and there is Rhino, both exist, but there's no link between them. The nervous system has not been established, let's say. Okay, so now the next step is we got to install something on in our computers through PowerShell, right? So if I go back to this GitHub link, it says we got to install, yeah, See, it says we got to install PowerShell http. Yeah, we got to install this, right? So, but if you directly install that, you will get an error. For example, if you directly install it, you will get an error. The term uvx is not recognized as the name of the command, whatever, because it's not installed. And also, you got to change a couple of things. So the first thing that you got to do is that you got to open your PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, right click and say run as admin. That's very important to run as admin, right? And the first thing that you got to type is this, which is Set-ExecutionPolicy RemoteSigned scope CurrentUser, right? Why are we doing this? This is because we need to download a couple of things for, especially in the next step, we need to install something called as UV to establish this link, right? And if you directly add this, the next step, it might give you an error, right? Because this is not changed, because it gave me an error. So first thing you got to do is that you say Set-ExecutionPolicy RemoteSigned scope CurrentUser, right? And generally it is set to no, right? So what you will get next is that you will get this. The execution policy helps protect you from scripts that you do not trust. Changing the execution policy might expose you to the security risk described in the about execution help topic at whatever link. Do you want to change the execution policy? You got to say yes, right? You got to say yes for now. So type Y here. Okay, you got to type Y and then press enter. And then in the next line, you got to say this PowerShell C. You got to install this UV install. Okay, why are we doing this? Because then Rhino can access the backend and connect it to Claude, right? That's what I understand from it. We got to install this PowerShell C http. Okay, I can do this with you, even though I've already installed it, but I guess there's no problem in installing again, right? I hope so. So I got to just already I have it. I'm gonna put all of this in the comments, in the description. So don't worry about it. Okay, so you got to say this PowerShell C help whatever and press enter. Now once you press enter, it will tell you downloading UV. Even though I've already downloaded, it will still do it, right? And then it says everything installed. Amazing job till now. Okay, so this is done. What we did till now, we installed Rhino, we installed MCP plugin, we installed Claude, we used PowerShell to install this as well. There's another step. If you want, you can do this so that the path does not change, which is this one, which is env path C drive users your name, right? Local bin env path, right? So what this does is that it helps, or rather makes UV and UVX commands usable in the PowerShell session, right? If you don't need to really do this, but you can do that and press enter and nothing really happens, right? Now, the next step is that you got to start this. Okay, so this is done. PowerShell is done. Rhino is done. Now let's go back to Rhino and say MCP start, right? In Rhino, it will say server thread started. Amazing. Now let's go back to PowerShell. And here you got to type UVX Rhino MCP. Okay, it will download all things and it says successfully connected to Rhino startup. Beautiful, right? So this is done. Now we got to see why is Claude not able to talk to this, right? Let's go back to Claude now. Now I will ask it the same question again. Connect to the Rhino MCP server. I'm just going to copy this, paste it here and see what it says. It's going to say the same thing, I guess. And because we didn't get the logo, right? It's again says it can't connect it to external server, right? Right now, close Claude on your computer. Go to C drive. Okay, go to C drive. Go to users. Okay, we got to basically establish this link between Rhino and Claude, right? Because right now we are putting this command, right? We are putting the command UVX Rhino, But Claude doesn't know that, right? So we got to tell Claude that when I say UVX Rhino MCP, you got to start connecting it. So that's what you got to do. But for that, we first need to enter wherever this Claude is installed, right? So go to C drive, users, go to your name, in my case, Kedar, go to app data, right? If you can't see app data, click on this view on top. You see this view, click on it, go to show, and on this both, right? You got to on this file name extensions, and you got to tick hidden items. When you tick on hidden items, you will see app data, click on it, go to roaming, go to Claude, right? We need to put a file here, right? For it to connect. And what we got to put is, let me tell you what we got to add in here. Okay. So this is what the file we got to put in, right? For the MCP servers to start, when I say command UVX, it can connect to Rhino MCP, right? This is a JSON file, right? If you want to do it on your own, I'll tell you how to do it. Simple. First, right click here, then say new, okay? And then say text document, right? Right now, keep it as it is. Open the text document. Yeah, I'll put this again in the description, so don't worry. Got to copy this, right? I'm going to paste it and I'm going to save this, right? And I will rename this as the same one, which is Claude desktop config, right? So I'm going to rename this as Claude desktop config. Now, right now it's a TXT file, but we got to make it a JSON file, right? For it to communicate, right? I don't want to go details into what a JSON file and all this are, but you got to change the extension basically. Right now it was .txt. Now we make .json. Okay, it will ask you, do you want to change this? And say yes. Now let's open Claude again and see if something has changed. Doesn't seem like nothing is changed, right? Why does this happen is because Claude doesn't close completely. What you got to do is you can right click, basically open task manager, right? You know how to open task manager, Control Alt Delete or here. And you will see here in background process, this Claude is open. Where did you go? So you see Claude is open in the backend. So end that, right? You got to end that. Okay. Once you end it, now you got to open Claude again. Now the next time you open Claude, you should see this logo. You see this hammer kind of a logo, which says 11 MCP tools available. That is it. That is it. We are golden. You know, this is a little bit long process. Let me repeat again. Download Rhino, start, install the plugin Rhino MCP, go to PowerShell, do those 3 steps, go to Claude, then go to wherever Claude is installed, add the JSON file, close Claude from your task manager, open Claude, and then you will see this hammer. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Okay. Now we'll look at how to communicate, right? Okay. Now that everything is completely fully installed, let's start creating something, right? Now, firstly, you got to open Rhino, right? And here you got to say MCP start. Yes. And then it says server thread started. Amazing. Now I can split this into, so I'm going to use Windows and the left key for it to go on the right side. Sorry. Then I'm going to go to PowerShell because we got to do that as well. In this time, you don't need to open as admin because everything is already installed. So once you open PowerShell, you got to say UVX Rhino MCP, enter. Right. And it will say, yes, successfully connected to Rhino on startup. Amazing. Right. Now we don't need PowerShell at this moment. So I'm going to minimize it, but don't close it. Okay. Because it's established a link. So don't close it. Right. Then we got to open Claude. Okay. So now you will see that Claude is open. This hammer thing is there. And that means that we have established a connection. So let me put this to the left hand side so that we see what's happening and what's we are doing here. So now you can type in Claude connect to Rhino MCP server. And now let's see what it says. See, Now it says, I will connect to Rhino server for you. Let me gather some information about the current document first. Yes, do it. Yeah. And now it's going to take some documents. It's going to see what's I'm having trouble connecting to Rhino server at the moment. It seems like the connection was closed by the remote host. Okay, great. I successfully connected to the Rhino server. Then it says no objects in the scene, only one layer default. Amazing. You see how great is this? And units is millimeters, tolerance is 0.001 mm. Beautiful, right? I don't know what else to say to that. Now let's see, let's ask it to do something else, right? For example, make a rectangle of 10 by 10. Okay, I'm gonna go to Rhino, just double click on perspective so that this view is selected, and always say allow for this chat, right? And there you see this kind of a rectangle has been created. Amazing, right? Let me go to shaded view. Yeah, let's take if the dimensions are correct or no. So let's say dimension aligned. Okay, I'm gonna click at this edge, gonna click at this edge, 10. Amazing, right? Isn't it amazing? Click on this, 10. Beautiful, right? Beautiful. Okay. Now, if you had to do it in a different way, like for example, we didn't use this, right? What I was talking about, API and things like that, right? How that would work is that, okay, let me just okay. So what I was talking about API, or basically if the same thing I had to do in Rhino, right? I had to do a different methods. Like for example, same thing. Let me off this grid. So you can type grid in Rhino and show grid can go. Amazing, right? Now let's say I say I want to type it in Python. So I say edit Python script, right? This starts, right? Now imagine I gotta say here import Rhino, Rhino script syntax as rs, right? Correct? Is the spelling correct? Okay. Then I would say rs dot add rectangle, right? What I was telling you in the presentation, rs dot add rectangle. I gotta type in add rectangle and then the brackets. So it tells me what is to be done. So if you see here, it will tell me I need to describe a plane now and I need to put the dimension, right? So I'm just going to copy this because I got to describe plane, right? Enter. So we are describing the plane. This line has to go. Okay. And then we got to type plane, comma 10, comma 10. And then let's run this. And then you will get another rectangle, right? So you see this one, the first one which says curve rectangle, that's the one that Claude made. Okay, I can delete this, right? Can delete this and I can run this from Python editor. And you will see another rectangle is created, right? So you see the complicated process that you would have to follow just to make a rectangle for it to establish communication. Of course, you will say that we can type rectangle, but this is what I was talking about API. You know, when I was doing this, I felt like those, you know, that meme where that person is constantly typing, and on the other hand, there's this person who's chill, listening to music and, you know, getting the work done. That to me more feels like what this API, MCP is doing versus when I had to code everything, right? Another interesting thing what it does is that right now we had two objects, right? So one was this rectangle, and if I type what, it will tell you the object name is rectangle 10 by 10, which is what Claude said that the name of the object is rectangle 10 by 10, right? So all the data also gets fed into the particular geometry, right? Okay. Now let's do something else, right? Now let's say Claude, can you make a cube? Make a cube of 5 by 5 by 5 and array that cube in x-axis. Let's say this is 10 by 10 by 10. Let's say the cube size is 10 by 10 by 10 and array that cube in x-axis and y access to get a total of 50 cubes. Okay, and the gap between the cubes is 2, right now, because it knows it's so this everything is happening in right? And now let's see what happens, right? Couple of tips, I guess. Always add dimension, otherwise it's going to make random, right? Otherwise it's not know what's exactly is happening. And if you're using it for free, right, you're not using a Claude paid version, give simple tasks first. Make a rectangle, make a cube, and then keep on adding, because there is a word limit, right? Because if you use a free version, at one point it will say that it's done, I cannot go further, right? It will tell you come after 3 hours, and then who knows what happens in this 3 hours time. So give it small things to work on, right? Now let's see what it can do. Okay, this cube is generated, right? Now what it's doing, now I will create an array of 50 cubes, 5 into 10. I didn't specify that, so 5 by 10 is fine. I will use execute Rhino script Python code to create this array. Okay, that's fine, whatever it uses, right? And now it's trying to create. Okay, you might be wondering, why doesn't it look like this API? But this is what a JSON file looks like, similar what we added in the Claude server. So MCP connects to Rhino through API. Claude uses this JSON file, right? Okay, allow. Amazing. See, I always get blown away by when you start doing things on its own. It's ridiculous, right? And now it says, see, it made 50 cubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 50. Let's check dimensions if you want. So let's say dimension aligned, right? So this has to be 10. This has to be 10. This has to be, I think, 2. Amazing. Like, I don't know what else to say, and then let's go in the front view and also take dimension there. Again, 10. How amazing is this? It always blows my mind when things like this happen. Okay, it's just like, I don't know what to say. Anyway, now let's ask us to do something little complex. I also want to tell you what in the, maybe I should have told this earlier, but if you go to Rhino MCP, the document that I was showing you, this one, here it clearly states what it can do, right? Scripts interface, so far the tool only supports creating primitive objects for proof of concept. More geometries will be added in the future. Supported objects right now are point, line, polyline, curve, box, and sphere, right? So try to be in this realm and not go beyond it, right? Now let's ask it something different to do. I'm going to delete the dimension because it's already doing it, right? So let me delete this. Simple deleting process. Now I want to ask it, move the cubes to form a sine wave. The height is left to you. It should look visually like a sine wave pattern. Let's see if it can do that, right? I will transform the cube array into a sine wave pattern by adjusting the height, z coordinate. Okay, let's see. I haven't done this before, right? Also, another thing, if something that you can do quickly in Rhino, just do it and finish it off, But right now, till now, I haven't made anything apart from dimensions, right? This entire thing that you see is been created. Isn't it magical, right? I don't know. Now let's see if it does. I'm not sure it's going to do it. It seems we had an issue. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to modify the cubes. It keeps on trying and trying and trying. But because it keeps on continuously trying, it will, exhaust your word limit. And then, you have to continue it later. Okay, I don't know what it did. It just moved one cube on this. No, that's not what I'm asking you to do, man. Okay, defining app. Okay, it's doing something. I don't know what exactly it's trying to do. I guess this is not going to be a successful task, right? Allow. Nope. This is doing something, man. Rhino, Claude. Who do you say? Is it Rhino or Claude or MCP? Who do you say? Uh-huh. Is this the height that you're giving it? Are you gonna make it like this? Okay, I'm not really sure what's gonna happen. This approach is working. Okay. And see here, now it's calling Rhino syntax. Let me try a simpler Rhino script approach. Okay. Right. So the MCP is constantly telling it, it's not doing, it's not happening. What are you doing? Then they are communicating, and then things are getting generated. Okay. See, I told you what it's gonna do. It's gonna make like this, but that's not what I wanted. It's fine. It's doing its best. Oh, nice. Okay, I got what it say. It's making its own gaps. Now what are you doing, sir? Oh, are you making like a DNA? It's a little bit scary that somebody else is using your computer. I don't know. How I feel about it, but that's what it is. Interesting, right? The second line went like that, right? Now the third line. Amazing, man. This, I don't know. I don't know how else to express it. It blows my mind always, right? I just wish there was no limitation of things that I can ask it to do, but let's see. I don't know how long this video is gonna go. I'm gonna edit parts of it to make it concise. Okay, so you see, it tried its best, I guess. The first one, the third one is not really correct. Like, let's go to front view and see what's really happening. Yeah, the height is not really, but still, I mean, getting this is also great. Is it finished? I think it's gonna say I successfully made this. I love the confidence of AI, man. I wish I have that confidence. AI does, and it says, I have successfully done this. See? I knew it. Perfect. I've successfully arranged all 50 cubes in a sine wave pattern. Here's what I have created, right? I want this confidence in my life. What I also like is that on the top, it's kind of kept the same gap. That's really interesting, right? In the top view, the gap is same. So that's cool. So let me ask it to clear the chat and whatever is there in my Rhino file. Beautiful. Magic. Interesting, man. You made all of this. No, we done. It's done. You made it. Oof. 6 layers. Documentation creation name, today's date, right? Units, I got like, it keeps on surprising me the more I, use it. Okay, now let's have something complex to do. And then that should be it for this video from my end, because you guys can explore it the way you want it, right? Okay, I want to make a better sine wave, right? Can you make a sine wave pattern with cubes? The dimension is left to you. You're left to... Okay, and now let's see what it does, because I've kept the dimensions to itself, and let's see what it does. What? What? Okay, I had absolutely not expected this to be this. Okay, this looks really good. This looks really good. What? It made another one? What? Oh, I think it's reading from the earlier chat. Let's add third row, fourth row. Okay, this now is nice, right? Third row, you messed up, man. Let's see in the top. Yeah, again in the top, the consistency, right? Really good, really good. Okay, so now the limitation is really what you can communicate with it, right? One thing to remember is the way we communicate with it, and I think that's another thing that's happening right now with the world of AI, is the more and more understanding of prompt engineering, let's say. I mean, where you got to understand how to talk to it, and then it'll do the better job, right? If I would have just told it to do like this, it would have done better than me asking it to make a cube and then array and then this. This would have been an easier method, right? Yeah, this is really great, man. This is really great, right? I could just then maybe make use of all of these bases, right? I'm just thinking out loud now. What can be done with this sine wave so that one piece is at least flat, or I can just add pipes below and then create something with this. Let's move it down a little bit. Let's see. Right? Amazing. Right? Crazy. Right? Let's go to top view, delete some of these boxes. Okay. And then is the height matching though? Oh, yes. What? Do you see the height is matching? Oh my God. So basically, I can copy these parts and I can just say copy and it's going to continue. Okay. I literally don't know what else to say, right? I can then maybe rotate it. Now this is up to you, right? If you ask this to be done by Claude, it's not gonna do so well, And then let's say I just make array polar from center. How many things do we want? Let's say around 36 things. Damn. How cool is this, right? Of course, I had to intervene in between because it would be too complex. But this entire the profile was done by Claude, right? Profile was not done by me, right? Something to think about. Okay, they're here a little bit of messed up, but it's fine. Love it. If I could figure out how to join them, I can just tag them on top. We can literally 3D print it, we can and get it done. So how long did it take? You're using it for ideation, you're using your own brain and then making it nice. Okay, so I just started a new chat. Amazing. And now let's ask again. Make a 2D plan of Chandigarh city. Chandigarh city from India. Nice. I will create it. Yes, you have to create it. Urban designer Lee Corbusier. Oh, interesting. What? Okay. Let me add some key landmarks and areas of Chandigarh. Okay. Sector 17 Plaza. What? Wait. What? Okay, I'm gonna search for a plan of Chandigarh till then to see how precise is this. I'll allow you, sir. Okay, text. Dude, you just messed up complete text. I have completely, okay, city boundary, the block, sector grid. Well, anyway, I think this has gone way too far than what we had, or I had intended to do. But you understand the capabilities of it. It fails somewhere, it works sometimes, and I guess we just have to be cautious about it, right? But it still does amazing work, and I would encourage you to install and see how this tool works, right? Oh, and before I forget, similarly, how we start in a sequence, we also got to remove or close in a sequence. So you can close Claude first, that's fine. Now you can go back to terminal, and now because this is starting, we got to abort it. So you can press Ctrl and C on your keyboard. So here on top, it should say Rhino MCP server shutdown. So basically it stopped using the server, and then you can close Rhino, right? So that's the closing, right? You got to follow 3 steps and 3 steps. So I hope you had fun seeing what API does. It is really mind-blowing, right? It really is mind-blowing what it can do, and the capabilities is, I can only imagine if somebody adds more complex features to it, we will be able to do more things, right? Now coming to the safety, which I think is really important to understand with any generative AI tool. Number 1, don't use this with your master file. Let's say you are working on a bigger file. Don't work on that because it might change some things, and that's not useful, right? Don't send screenshots to Claude, right? You can upload images as well, right? So don't send screenshot of your model unless you really necessarily feel it's needed, right? Use it in a separate file. For example, let's say you want to create, for example, a staircase. Create it, copy it, and then put it in your master file. And then useful again, like what we did for ideation, creative play, testing, right? And you might have some back of your mind questions, right? For example, does Claude have access to my computer files? No, it does not have access to your computer files. Does it seize data sent by the MCP plugin? Yes. So Claude or Anthropic's API will also see what's happening, right? So that's why I told you to work on a separate file and don't send screenshots, right? We don't really know what happens to data, right? And the more we are mindful, we can take better decisions and keep ourselves safe, right? So that's something to keep in mind, right? And lastly, the checklist, right? So every time you will start this, you got to do certain steps, right? So step number 1 is launch Rhino. In the command line, you got to type MCP start like we did. Then you got to launch PowerShell. You got to type there UVX Rhino MCP. It will tell you successfully connected to Rhino on startup. Brilliant. Then you got to start Claude, and then you got to say connect to Rhino MCP server, and that's it. And then you start creating, building, whatever. And when you close, you got to do similarly. First close Claude, right? So what we did 1, 2, 3. Now you got to do 3, 2, 1. So first we close Claude. Then we go to the PowerShell. We say Control C to abort what is happening, and then we close Rhino, and that's it. That's it. So every time you do, you got to follow these protocols, right? That's why MCP protocols. Okay. You got to do this, and that's it. Okay. I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for your time. Do subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.